Well, good afternoon, and thanks for joining me for this Modifier Monday presentation featuring modifiers 51 and 99. I'm Mary Mucko. I'm a specialist on the Provider Outreach and Education team at WPS Government Health Administrators. Assisting me today is my friend and colleague, Bailey Lawson, as well as other members of the Provider Outreach and Education team at WPS GHA. On the next slide, you will see something that we begin each presentation with, and that is our disclaimer. The purpose is to remind you that while we made every effort to make certain the education we're providing today is accurate and current, information is subject to change. Medicare rules can change. They are found in relevant laws, regulations, and rulings on the CMS website. We provide responses to questions based on the facts given, but Medicare rules always prevail. And last but not least, CMS prohibits recording of this presentation for profit-making purposes. The next slide is our agenda for today, and it is based on survey feedback that we chose today to talk about modifiers 51 and 99. So during this session, my plan is to cover the definition, correct use, and incorrect use of both modifier 51 and modifier 99. And this presentation will also include resources for both of the modifiers. You will find links for these resources in the presentation material that was made available for download. Finally, this session will conclude with questions and answers related to these two modifiers. If you have questions about other modifiers, please contact customer service and someone will be glad to assist you. So moving on to the next slide, in your presentation packet, it's titled Modifier 51, and the definition of Modifier 51 is multiple procedures. The next slide then talks a little bit about the use of Modifier 51. While many payers may require the use of Modifier 51 to report multiple procedures, Medicare does not recommend reporting this modifier on any Medicare claim. And let me repeat that. Medicare does not recommend use of this modifier whatsoever. The Medicare Claims Processing System, the MCS, will append the modifier to the correct procedure code that is appropriate. The next slide includes the definition of modifier 51, and it may be applied for all situations that are noted here on this slide, but the two most common situations for using this modifier are number 1 and number 2. Surgical procedures that are rendered on the same day, during the same session, by the same provider, and the other most common reason is diagnostic imaging services that are subject to multiple procedure payment reductions when they are provided on the same day, during the same session, by the same provider. You can see examples of other types of modifier use there. Notice, though, that the word may is bolded and it appears in purple colored font. And the reason for this is I wanted to reinforce that this modifier may be reported, but Medicare recommends that you do not report it at all. The next slide begins a discussion about the physician fee schedule. And if choosing to use this modifier, it's really important for you to understand how to correctly use it, on which lines you need to report it. So to understand to which code you need to append this modifier 51, you need to use the Physician Fee Schedule, or PFS, relative value files. The Physician Fee Schedule shows the basis of payment for physician services, and it has over 7,000 unique codes and payment rates. CMS publishes the Physician Fee Schedule annually, and it also publishes quarterly updates, or they publish quarterly updates, including the need for any revisions. The Physician fee schedule is found on the CMS website, and I've included the link to it here on this slide. You will need unzip software in order to access or view those files, but once unzipped, you will choose an Excel file for the database comment itself, and then to understand the payment indicators that are listed on that Excel file, CMS provides a PDF file which explains the columns and the pricing indicators that will appear in each of those columns. On to the next slide. The column header that relates to pricing for multiple procedures is labeled as you see it on this slide. It's MULT PROC, and that stands for multiple procedure. That is the column heading title for column S on the physician fee schedule relative value file. And for each CPT code listed on that file, and remember there's over 7,000, you will find payment indicators 1 through 7 and 9 in that MULT PROC or multiple procedure column. And these indicate which payment adjustment rules apply. If you look to the next slide, you'll see that I've included a couple of examples of the payment adjustment rules that apply for some multiple procedure payment indicators. These are taken directly from that PDF file that I referenced. I've included the link to that, remember, in your handout. This is where you can download, or in that PDF file, download those explanations of the payment indicators. So these are those that are for column S only, the column titled MULT PROC, which stands for multiple procedures. It's actually on page 9 of the PDF file that you can find these particular explanations, if you will. So if a 0 appears there, that means that no payment adjustment rules apply. If the 2 is there, it means the standard payment adjustment rules or multiple procedures apply. So if procedures are reported on the same day as another procedure, and there's an indicator in that column of 1, 2, or 3, that means you're going to need to rank those procedures by the fee schedule amount and apply the appropriate reduction to this code. And you can see there it's 100%. The second procedure would be paid at 50%, followed by 50% and 50%, and then by report. So Medicare then is going to base the payment on the lower of the actual charge or the fee schedule amount reduced by the appropriate percentage. Remember, full, half, 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 and then by report. A 9, if it appears in column S of the physician fee schedule relative value file, means that this concept does not apply for that particular CPT or HCPCS code. Now, I talked a lot about how you can look up all of this information. CMS has actually published a fantastic publication. Their Medicare Learning Network booklet is called How to Use the Physician Fee Schedule or PFS Lookup Tool. The most recent version of that handout or that tool was April of 2023. A link is provided in your presentation materials. We have published a Modifier 51 fact sheet that shows the appropriate and inappropriate uses for Modifier 51. On the next slide, I've included the links for you so that you can get to both the Modifier 51 fact sheet as well as the Modifier 99 fact sheet. If you were to open that Modifier 51 fact sheet, you would see listings of appropriate uses as well as inappropriate uses. And on the next slide, I've included a couple examples of appropriate uses. But I have made an update, or I need to make an update. I did it on my copy, but the copy that's being shown now by Mary Sue hasn't had that update yet. But remember that I've been talking about column S, and I've been telling you over and over, the name of that column is MULT PROC for multiple procedure. On this particular slide, for some reason, and I didn't catch it till this morning, I apologize, I typed MULT-SURG because I had in my head multiple surgery, which is when a lot of providers use the modifier 51. So that SURG on each of those bullets there should actually read PROC. So appropriate uses then of modifier 51 if you are going to report it. And remember I said for Medicare, we actually prefer that you not report it at all. If you feel you have to report it or you need to report it because there's another insurance your claim needs to go to, a 51 would be appropriate when both of the procedure codes for surgery have an indicator of 2 in that multiple procedure column. In that case, you would append modifier 51 only to the surgery code with the lower physician fee schedule amount. Another time rather, when a modifier 51 may be appropriate, you don't have to report it at all, is when both diagnostic procedures have an indicator of 4 in that multiple procedure column. MULT, PROC, it should not be SURG there. And Mary Sue's correcting that as we speak. Thanks, Mary Sue. In that case, if there's an indicator of 4 for the diagnostic procedure, you would append the modifier 51 to that procedure code that represents the lower technical component fee schedule amount. Refer to the modifier 51 fact sheet for more. And if we have time at the end of my prepared remarks, I'm going to ask Mary Sue then to go out to our website and pull each one of these modifier fact sheets up so that you'll be able to take a look at them. But let's move on to the next slide and talk about those situations where modifier 51 is not appropriate. Never append a 51 modifier to an add-on code. Add-on codes are those codes that are marked with that plus sign in the CPT manual. They're also shown on Appendix D in the CPT manual. Another not appropriate use for modifier 51 is using it on every single line of service. That is not appropriate. And remember, it's not required that you report a 51 modifier whatsoever. On the next slide, I've included some tips that I think are really helpful for you to know. Multiple surgery pricing logic also applies for those surgical assistant services. It also applies or would apply to bilateral services when they're rendered on the same day as other procedures by the same provider during the same session, of course. Now, regardless of whether you append the 51 modifier on your claim, and remember, we hope that you don't, Medicare forwards a claim showing the 51 modifier to the secondary insurers. So even though you don't report the 51 on your claim, or if you choose not to, please, you can be assured that we will append that 51 modifier when we send that claim information or that detailed information on to any secondary insurer. All right, on to our next featured modifier for today's session. That is modifier 99, and the title or the description reads for modifier 99, multiple modifiers. So the next slide then shows the definition of this modifier. It is when multiple modifiers are used on one line of service. So if you are reporting modifier 99, your documentation is going to need to support the modifiers that you're using on that claim. And just as with any other modifier, your documentation has to justify the use of that particular modifier. So that means when you're using a modifier 99, your documentation must support at least 5 modifiers. The next slide includes some of those appropriate examples of modifier 99 use, and this comes right from that modifier 99 fact sheet that I mentioned to you earlier. You can report modifier 99 with any procedure. It is appropriate. And it should only be listed in the first modifier position for the respective line of service. You will need to list all the other modifiers in item 19 or the electronic data equivalent of the claim. If there are more than one detail line to which the 99 applies, you need to be certain to indicate each detail line when listing all of the other modifiers in item 19 or the electronic equivalent. So if you're using a 99 on a Medicare claim, the 99 will be in the first modifier space in 24 line or item 24D. There will be no other modifier listed on that detail line. However, you'll need to list those modifiers up in item 19 of the claim or the electronic data equivalent. Next are those examples of not appropriate use for the 99 modifier. It is not correct to report 3 different modifiers in the first modifier fields followed by the 99 modifier in the fourth field. Like I just mentioned, if you're going to report 99 on a claim, the only modifier that will show on that detail line will be the 99, and then you'll list those other modifiers up in item 19 or the electronic data equivalent. You will never report modifier 99 unless there are at least 5 modifiers for one line of service. And again, when reporting this modifier, you will not report any other modifiers on your line item in 24D. You can find claim form instructions for this particular modifier. You can find them specifically in Chapter 26 of Publication 100-04. That's one of the Medicare Internet-only manuals that CMS has published on their website. There's a link to Chapter 26 in your presentation materials. You can see it here on this slide. And if you look to Section 10.4, you're going to find the claim form instructions for completing items 14 through 33. And the instruction that is specific for use of modifier 99 relates to item 24D. The instructions provide an example, and you can see them here on this slide, of how you're going to list the modifiers in item 19 or that electronic data equivalent when there are multiple claim items. So if there's more than 5 or there's 5 modifiers you need to report on claim detail line 1 and also on claim detail line 2, up in item 19, you're going to have to indicate line 1, add all of the modifiers, and then line 2, and add all of the modifiers. All of that information needs to be reported. Now, the next step, if you're doing that, is also important, but it's also important on any claim, regardless of how many modifiers you're reporting. As a rule of thumb, when you're listing multiple modifiers for the same line item, the placement of the modifiers really does matter. You must report all of the pricing modifiers first, and then follow with those modifiers that are considered by Medicare to be informational modifiers. So how do you know if a modifier is a pricing modifier or if it's an informational modifier? The answer's on the next slide. We make it easy for providers to know the difference between an informational modifier and a pricing modifier because we published those on fact sheets. There's one for informational only modifiers. There's also one for pricing modifiers. All right, at this time, Mary Sue, I'm going to ask you if you would go out to the WPS website and let's show everyone where those modifier fact sheets can be found. And I want to thank Mary Sue for helping me out today. I am unable to share my screen and show the presentation to you, so it's a great help to have all of my wonderful teammates standing by to help in case. So this is our website as it looks today. Very soon, our website's going to have a new look. There's been a redesign underway for quite some time now, and that will roll out, I believe, around the 16th of this month. Our website URL or address will be the same as it has been, wpsgha.com. However, if you have set any bookmarks, you're going to need to make new bookmarks. So as it looks to, excuse me, as it looks today, our website is arranged by topic centers, and the modifier fact sheets are found under the claims topic center. So Mary Sue is clicking there on topic center, followed by claims. And when you look at claims, you can view the guides and resources. And under the A through Z listing, or by top, let me back up a minute. A through Z listing. Okay, thanks, Mary Sue. I'm kind of getting ahead of you here. Let's look first by topic. Obviously, if you're looking by topic for modifier information, it's going to be listed under modifiers. So it would be there under modifiers. You can also find it listed on our alpha listing, A through Z. So let's take a look at the modifier page, Mary Sue. And there we are by topic. We're going to modifiers. Mary Sue's choosing modifiers. And then there's a listing here of all of the modifier fact sheets we have. A couple of them that I talked about were those informational only modifiers, and they are listed there under general modifier information. She's clicking on that to pull that up to get a little quick look at that. And you can see here are informational only modifiers. And the tip to remember about these is when you're listing multiple modifiers, either on a line item or up in item 19, when you're using more than 5 or 5 or more, you need to place the modifiers that are pricing modifiers first and then follow with the informational modifiers. So these are the informational only modifiers. If you go back to the previous page, you can see that we can also choose the pricing modifiers there under general modifier information. Great. So these are the pricing modifiers, and they're entered first. Okay, it's sequential. If you look back to that slide that has the dominoes on it, that's where those tips are. So that's the pricing versus informational modifiers. If you go back to the page, you can also find our 51 modifier fact sheet. Or if you don't care to scroll, you can do a find. Mary Sue has pulled up for me, thank you, the modifier 51 fact sheet. And as I told you, fact sheets include our definition, it includes appropriate uses and inappropriate uses, and then sometimes adds additional information. And the additional information here for the multiple procedure modifier 51 is that information that I gave to you that speaks to the information you find out in the physician fee schedule relative value file, how we price multiple procedures. The first one's paid at 100%. The second, third, and fourth is at 50%, and then by report. So this is just kind of summarizing what I've already talked about today there in that additional information. There's also the modifier 99 fact sheet. This one's a little shorter, little more brief. Mary Sue's using the search feature to find the modifier 99 fact sheet. Sometimes that's a little quicker than scrolling and scrolling. And you can see here is the definition, appropriate uses, and inappropriate uses. And again, this one's much briefer than some of the fact sheets. I will ask Mary Sue to continue driving. She's doing a great job, and thank you again, Mary Sue. Go up and open on a new tab the CMS website, if you will. CMS.gov is the CMS website. And remember, all of these links are included in your handout material. CMS kind of has a new look to their website too. You may have noticed if you've looked at it lately. We're going to look at, do a search, Mary Sue, and do relative value file. Relative value file. This is how I get to it the quickest way if I don't use my bookmark. Right there, the top one. PFS stands for Physician Fee Schedule Relative Value File. And this is for determining which codes you append the modifier 51 to. I just want to explain how CMS has listed these relative value files. I mentioned to you that CMS publishes these annually, and then they do quarterly updates. So you'll see the files listed by year under the name column. And then in the file name column, you'll notice some RVU 23, that stands for relative value units. 23 is the calendar year. And then you'll see a D on the first line. The second line is an A. The third is a C, and then a B. Those, A, B, C, and D, represent each quarter of 2023. So A is the first quarter, B is second quarter, C is third quarter, and D is the fourth quarter. So depending on your date of service, you would need to pick the applicable file. Now the next download takes a little bit of time, so I'm not going to ask Mary Sue to do that necessarily unless we just let it run in the background. Go ahead, yeah, let's just see how long it takes Mary Sue. Go ahead and open one of the files. She's going to open the third. Now, I mentioned to you when you download, you're going to need unzipped software, and that's what's happening right here, is that that software is being used to unzip the file. And the reason for that is because these files are so very big. So when you download or you click on that RVU file there, CMS does just what we do and ask you to complete surveys. And of course, we can't complete the survey. If you actually clicked on the download, and I wasn't sure you were going to do that, Mary Sue, because it does take sometimes a little bit of time. You have to save it to your desktop, and we're not going to do that right now. What's going to happen is this is where it's going to unzip, and you'll see a number of files listed. The two files on the very bottom of the list that come up are the two files you'll use. One is that Excel file, which is the database itself, which has all of those columns on it. You know, A is the column that has the CPT code. Column S is that column that's multiple procedures. So that would be the database, the Excel file, and then the PDF file is the explanation of what each of those payment adjustment indicators in each of those columns means. And I showed you some examples of that when we went through the presentation on the when I talked about the appropriate and inappropriate uses of modifier 51. And remember that there's a lot of steps here. It might seem like a lot of steps, but CMS has published that absolutely wonderful booklet that will help you walk through those steps and find the information you need. That was that Medicare Learning Network booklet that I showed you in your presentation, and your presentation handout materials or your presentation materials includes the link to that. Thank you for hanging in there with me through some of these technical issues today. I wish you a wonderful day. You may now disconnect.